Coming up on this Thursday edition of Newsline at noon, 6 years after the two Koreas' landmark October 4th declaration. Inter-Korean relations are icy again, with Pyongyang accusing Seoul of carrying out a confrontational policy that could trigger a war. US President Barack Obama and bipartisan congressional leaders failed to reach a compromise on the president's contested healthcare reforms that have forced a partial government shutdown. Plus, Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta wins the Senate's confidence vote after former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi backs out of attempting to bring down the coalition government. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us on this National Foundation Day here in Korea, and I'm Choi You-sun in Seoul.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. This Friday, tomorrow, marks the 6th anniversary of a declaration signed by the two Koreas to boost inter-Korean cooperation and secure peace on the peninsula.
However, with recent signs of nuclear activity in North Korea and its sudden cancellation of planned family reunions, inter-Korean relations remain frosty. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
6 years after the two Koreas adopted the October 4th declaration, not much progress has been made in inter-Korean relations. Signed by President Roh Moo-hyun and North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, the declaration lists 45 tasks for the two Koreas, such as establishing a special peace and cooperation zone in the West Sea and shifting the current Korean War armistice to a peace treaty. But with most of the projects deemed unrealistic and too costly, much of the agreement has virtually been scrapped. That's put a damper on the outlook for inter-Korean ties. And following weeks of thawing relations, the two sides are back at odds after North Korea suddenly called off a round of planned reunions for families separated during the Korean War. In its state-run daily 노동신문, North Korea on Wednesday slammed a massive military parade staged by South Korea this week to mark the 65th Armed Forces Day, calling it a confrontational act that could trigger a war. In a separate publication, the North's committee overseeing inter-Korean relations called President Park Geun-hye's Armed Forces Day speech a serious provocation that defies efforts for dialogue and peace on the Korean peninsula. President Park had vowed to build a strong deterrence against Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions. Meanwhile, Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo are scheduled to hold an annual joint naval drill next week, which could further upset Pyongyang. But amid the escalating tensions, a U.S. expert who recently held informal talks with North Korean officials in London over the resumption of stalled six-nation denuclearization talks said North Korea wants to return to the negotiating table, but added that the challenge is convincing Pyongyang to let go of its nuclear weapons and related technology. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
More evidence Pyongyang has restarted its nuclear reactor at Yongbyon has been obtained, according to a website run by the U.S. Korea Institute at Johns Hopkins University. The 38 North website says satellite imagery taken in mid-September shows the plutonium reactor releasing hot wastewater into a nearby river, a strong signal that North Korea has restarted the 5-kilowatt reactor. The website reported last month white steam was seen coming out from the reactor's generator building. The Yongbyon facility was supposedly shut down in 2007 under a 6-party talks agreement. It's believed to be able to supply Pyongyang with enough plutonium to make 1 nuclear bomb a year. Today marks the 4,345th National Foundation Day, or Gaechonjeol, here in Korea. A national holiday since 1909, this is a day to celebrate the creation of the state of ancient Korea by the legendary King Dangun. At a national ceremony earlier today, Prime Minister Chung Hong-won said national unity built on dialogue and compromise is what's most important for Korea at the present time. His remarks come amid a string of ongoing political and social divisions within the country over a number of issues. The Prime Minister added the nation should overcome challenges such as global economic uncertainties and social divisions in order to make Korea a place where each and every person feels happy. New data shows the government's efforts to regulate Korea's underground economy may be having an effect. The Bank of Korea said the number of transactions in the private sector made either by credit card, debit card, or cash receipt have increased by 30% over the last 5 years, indicating efforts to regulate the underground economy are working. The central bank said just under 90% of purchases in the private sector last year were made by one of the three methods. The Bank of Korea also said the country's credit card spending hit a 10-year high in July, increasing 10% from the same month last year to 38.8 trillion won. One of Korea's biggest traditional holidays, Chuseok, has passed, and it's now China's turn to enjoy an extended break, a 7-day-long holiday, in fact, one that celebrates the founding of the People's Republic of China. Tens of thousands of Chinese tourists are all booked up to make the short hop to Korea's southern Jeju Island over the holiday break. Hwang Jie has the details.
This is a 5-star hotel in downtown Jeju. It's a popular lodging among Chinese tourists, but it's been even busier this week since China's 7-day-long national holiday kicked off.
The ratio of Chinese guests and Korean guests at our hotel is usually about 50-50. This week, 80% of our guests are Chinese tourists.
The story is similar for other hotels on Korea's southern resort island, with the booking rate during the holiday season reaching over 80%. The booking rate of nearly 120 international flights to Jeju Island also stands at 80% over the period, while an international cruise ship will enter the port of Jeju 5 times. Jeju's Tourism Association says that 70,000 Chinese tourists are expected to visit the island from this week until next Monday, when the holiday ends, up 46% from the same period a year ago. While the popularity of Jeju Island among Chinese tourists is rooted in the scenic beauty of the World Heritage Site, the improved accessibility to the island also factors in.
Jeju's provincial government and the Tourism Association have expanded the number of regular flights to Jeju to 50 per day, and the number of cruise ships has also increased threefold, making it easier for people to visit.
Duty-free shops in Korea are also expecting sales to rise during China's national holiday, while the overall tourism industry, that includes aviation and car rental services, are anticipating increased demand. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
There was high drama on Capitol Hill, but the U.S. government shutdown will go into day 3 after talks at the White House between congressional leaders closed with no deal on the budget impasse. Furious at the lack of movement, out-of-work federal workers have taken to the streets in protest. Connie Lee has more.
The U.S. government shutdown now heads into day 3 after congressional leaders emerged from the White House on Wednesday with no deal following talks with President Barack Obama. After the meeting, President Obama again reiterated that his health care reforms that triggered the deadlock are not up for negotiation. In an interview with CNBC, the president admitted that the standoff was exhausting.
During the course of my presidency, I have bent over backwards to work with the Republican Party. Am I exasperated? Absolutely, I'm exasperated, because this is entirely unnecessary.
The Republicans want to add government measures to the budget that would delay or undercut Obama's health care law, something the Democrats refuse to accept. And another clock is ticking, as a deadline to raise the nation's debt ceiling, October 17th, is fast approaching. For the 800,000 furloughed federal employees, the uncertainty over when they'll be able to return to work has left many angry, with some taking their frustrations to the streets.
2 kids in college, out-of-state tuition, it's going to be a significant financial hardship. I'm talking about possibly getting emergency loans from the credit union.
Another group of people upset by the shutdown are tourists, especially those in Washington, D.C., who are looking forward to checking out the national parks and museums there.
So much we're going to go see today, and now we get a big bowl of nothing.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Staying with the story, on Wall Street, U.S. stocks fell on Wednesday, reflecting investors' concerns over a prolonged government shutdown. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 58 points, or 0.4%, and the S&P 500 edged down by a single point, or 0.07%. To add to mounting concerns, new data showed that private employers added fewer jobs than expected in September. The partial shutdown of the U.S. government has so far had little effect on the Korean economy. The Korean government is keeping close tabs on any global developments and is ready to take necessary actions. Our Ji Myung-gil reports.
As U.S. lawmakers continue to butt heads over the issues that led the government to shut down this week, Korean officials continue to brace themselves for a possible negative impact on the Korean economy. The nation's finance ministry has been keeping close tabs on global developments as the impasse in Washington could intensify market volatility. But so far, the effects on the domestic economy has been limited. Korean stocks ended nearly flat on Wednesday as investors shrugged off concerns of the U.S. shutdown. But analysts caution that the uncertainties in the U.S. may weigh down the inflow of foreign currency into local markets if the impasse continues for a prolonged period of time, which could impact private sector spending and then eventually take a bite out of Korea's export-driven economy. Although Seoul does not expect the U.S. government shutdown to last for long, the finance ministry says it is ready to spring into action with measures in case the Korean economy is affected. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
For your fill of Korean and international news, join Choi You-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. NEWSLINE at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta has won a crucial vote of confidence for his coalition government after former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi suddenly stopped his campaign to dismantle the current leadership. Letta, who took office 5 months ago, won the Senate vote by a large margin and is also expected to easily win the lower house vote. Berlusconi's attempts to withdraw from the coalition led to splintering within his own party, and some pundits believe this may be the end of the scandal-ridden billionaire's political career. The UN Security Council is demanding Syria allow immediate access to provide desperately needed aid, saying the humanitarian situation in the war-stricken country is rapidly deteriorating. In a statement Wednesday, the Security Council called on Damascus to respect its obligation to provide safe and unhindered humanitarian access to people in need. It said it was appalled at the unacceptable and escalating level of violence and expressed deep concern about the number of refugees and the impact it has having on the entire region. The Syrian government says it will study the statement before responding. The UN estimates there are 7 million people in Syria who are in desperate need of help because of the civil war. Over in Japan, new reports are adding to concerns about the radiation leaking from the Fukushima power plant. Plant operator TEPCO says it has discovered a new leak of highly contaminated water from another storage tank that may well have flowed into the sea. Officials say they detected 200,000 becquerels per liter of radioactive substances, including strontium-90. This far surpasses the legal limit of 30 becquerels. TEPCO says it has notified the central government and apologized for, quote, causing anxiety. In a related development, a recent report says cesium has been detected in 70% of children living near the capital of Ibaraki Prefecture, which borders Fukushima. The Ibaraki Prefecture Cooperative Association says cesium had been detected in 58 of the 85 children who were tested as part of a recent study.
There were a variety of events taking place in Korea on Wednesday to celebrate the Day of Older Persons, including a grand feast for elderly people living in the community. Now, Kim Ji-yeon followed two people who have dedicated their lives to helping the elderly by volunteering at a local senior centre.
Hong Moon-ja and Ko Myung-soon are on their way to check in on an elderly lady they think is in her 70s, identified only by her surname Im. Im suffers from memory loss as a result of Alzheimer's disease, one of the most common type of dementia, and lives alone. Hong and Go check in on her at least once a week to make sure she's eating and taking care of her health, but they'll go more often if there's a problem. Once they found it with a lump on her head and tried to get her some medical care. Another time they found her with a pot of weak broth, and when they asked about it, they discovered she'd forgotten how to make dinner, so they did the cooking for her. Hong, who is 66 years old, and Ko, who is 56, have been volunteering together at the Kangdong Center for Dementia for years.
I always try to think about how I can better treat her mind and heart. I really feel happy when I do this, but it's really hard to explain my feelings in words, to fully convey what I feel.
The number of people with dementia has risen steadily in Korea in recent years. According to the Ministry of Health and Welfare, the country's elderly population, defined as those who are 65 and over, had risen more than 17% over the past 4 years through the end of 2012, while the number of elderly people with dementia had risen around 27% in the same period. The ministry estimated that around 1 in 10 Koreans has dementia and predicted the number would expand to 1 million in 2024. To address the situation, the city of Seoul started building centers for senior citizens in 2008, dedicated to preventing dementia among the elderly. There are centers in almost every district in the city of Seoul, and they offer programs tailored to the needs of the people in each community, such as providing free checkups and consultations for seeking options to ease symptoms of dementia. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, unless you're a member of the armed forces, you probably don't get many chances to ride on a military helicopter or on a tank. But you can try out these experiences and more at a military fair hosted by the Defense Ministry that will run through the end of the week. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
One day after the nation held its largest Armed Forces Day celebration in 10 years, the Ministry of National Defense opened the 11th Ground Forces Festival in Kaedong City on Wednesday. From attack helicopters to heavy artillery, there's much to see. But unlike other exhibitions or events, visitors have full access to the vehicles. Special military performances and maneuvers are scheduled throughout the day, where they reenact rescue missions, with heavy artillery being fired and stunts being executed. There are also opportunities to hop on a helicopter for an airborne tour, or hitch a ride in a tank.
This is my first time on a military helicopter. It was fun and it wasn't scary as I thought. I hope I can have this opportunity again.
The 11th Ground Forces Festival is the largest annual Army event that's open to the public, where visitors can get up close and personal with Korea's military might.
One of the most popular sections is a shooting range, where people got to fire off blank rounds.
It was fun to actually fire a gun that active soldiers use.
If you want to get your hands a little dirtier, you can test your might at the boot camp section by climbing an artificial rock wall or jumping out of mock towers, which are used for parachute training. The festival runs through this Sunday, October 13th. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News, Kaeryong.
Now, a little less of a hands-on festival now, but the Paju Book Festival kicked off this week, and it's the largest event of its kind ever to be held, not only in Korea, but in the whole of Asia. The festival opened with much fanfare, with literary scholars coming in from all around the world, as well as a special visit from President Park Geun-hye herself. Our Paulie has the details.
The 2013 Paju Book Story Festival is in full swing here in Gyeonggi Province, just north of Seoul. The book theme festival is celebrating its third anniversary at Paju Book City, where hundreds of Korea's leading publishing houses have come together to create a truly unique literary environment. Visitors are able to browse to their heart's content through a massive catalog of domestic books, ebooks, audiobooks, and much more. Lectures, concerts, and a symposium on literature are also being held, featuring 30 famous figures in the literary world from 16 countries. President Park Geun-hye came out to show her support for the book fair, where she engaged with publishers and encouraged officials to further promote the nation's content industry. Special exhibits are showcasing historical geographical maps and astronomy charts from around the world, which date back as far as the 15th century. Organizers this year are focusing on increasing readership with book clubs and mentoring programs to ensure a vibrant future for the industry.
Writers, readers, and people who make books. Together we are participating to celebrate this event. Programs like these, I believe, need to be further strengthened as we move forward.
The Paju Book Festival runs through October 6th, with high hopes of attracting local and international book lovers, as well as inspiring a new generation of writers. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Time now to get an update on the weather with our Ji-Hyun standing by at the Weather Center here at Arirang. Good afternoon to you, Ji-Hyun.
Good afternoon, Mark and Yoo-sun.
Well, Ji-Hyun, we expected to have a typhoon-free year this year, but I heard that there's one on the way, perhaps this weekend, in fact.
That's right. Well, Typhoon Fido is on its way, and we might feel the effects on Sunday with high winds and heavy rain. It's likely to be strong near South Jeolla Province, which is the site of the Formula One Grand Prix. And as of this morning, the typhoon is far out at sea, shifting its course towards the west, but that could change. So please check the weather forecast frequently for the next few days. Well, today is National Foundation Day here in Korea, which is a public holiday, and the weather outside is stunning, which should make our day a little bit more pleasant. And if you're outside in early hours, you probably have noticed how things have cooled down compared to yesterday, and even afternoon highs will be running below 25 degrees Celsius across the region. So take a thick jacket and sunglasses because the sky is looking absolutely clear for most regions, so enjoy a dazzling sunshine and stay warm so that you don't get sick. Now, the forecast for tomorrow looks pretty much like a repeat of today's, but daytime high should be a couple of degrees higher with lots of sunshine, so that it will be a great way to end our work week. Well, it's going to be sunny, breezy, chilly, and dry today here in Seoul and across much of the country. So let's take a look at readings for today. So we'll get up to 21 degrees Celsius, which is 70 degrees degrees in Fahrenheit, and the afternoon high in Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 24, while Busan gets up to 25 under lots of sunshine. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju, Daejeon, and Dokdo will all get up into the low 20s, while Mount Kumgang stay on the cooler side. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me today. Enjoy the rest of the day, and back to Mark and Yoo-sun in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Jiyeon, for the weather report there. And that's pretty much all from us now. But you can always catch up with what's happening on our website, which can be found at arirang.co.kr/news.
And Mark and I will be back here at the same time tomorrow at noon.